Legendary singer D'Angelo passed away on October 14, 2025, and among many people across the entertainment industry paying their respects to the late great legendary singer, Tyler the Creator was amongst one of them. But within the comment section of the tribute, he would be constantly trolled by a section of his fan base. It seemed to have struck a nerve with Tyler as he was seen liking a post about his own fan base from someone else making a statement, which has led many people to ask the question, does he hate his white fan base? And the answer is yes, a certain subsection, but no, not as in the whole. The major problem with Tyler's fanbase is that they come from a time period of Tyler's career in which he was just becoming a young adult and making music that would be considered to be sexist, racist, misogynistic, and everything underneath the sun, and his whole persona was that he didn't care what he said, how he said it, and who he said it to. He was a provocateur. He was somebody who believed in pushing the boundaries as much as possible for pure shock value. And while yes, it is to be said that all of these things were all purely fictitious, and they were an expression of Tyler's mental state at the time, being expressed through extremely graphic and violent situations, it also gave way to fans to think that it's okay to say and do sexist, racist, and terrible things under the guise that it was okay because their favorite artist said it was okay. And while yes, the actions of an individual has no bearing based off of what a musician puts out, it does have an underlying influence to the audience that it's presented to. This presents Tyler with a very, very interesting situation. His entire come up came off the back of being offensive, and that offensive music just so happened to appeal to non-black fans who don't necessarily value the art of black art or hip-hop in the same way that black people or people who are of color that have black influences around them and grew up around the culture significantly do understand. And because of that, he can't necessarily share the things and artists and bands or groups that have influenced him into becoming the artist that he is today, because the vast majority of his listeners aren't black or don't have any black influences around them to be exposed to the culture in any significant and meaningful way. So it kind of feels like he's yelling to a crowd of no one. And that creates another situation that we also have to think about that speaks to the greater state of hip-hop right now. I made a video around a year or so ago called Hip Hop is Dead, and one of the reasons why I cited this is because of the fact that there's just an overflow of music being released and produced at the same time. Hip hop is one of the easiest things to produce you could ever possibly imagine. All it takes is a beat from YouTube, a decent setup, and BandLab, and next thing you know, you're probably making some form of underground music now. And because of this music being released so much and so often, the bar of entry for actual excellence has lowered significantly. So now the value of hip-hop music has lowered significantly as a result. And because of that, we just allow anyone and everyone to consume this music and engage in conversations that they don't necessarily know the most about. I'm not an elitist by any means necessary. I'm one who loves to educate others on the culture, but I'm also someone who understands when people do care versus when they don't care. And that's what Tyler's fanbase consists of. Those edgy white kids who think that Tyler is a form of every form of black music. Your first impression is everything, and Tyler's first impression in the industry was Yonkers and creating some of the most shocking music videos and being a part of some of the most shocking songs you could ever think of. And he continued to push the line until he got to a point in time where he did some self-evaluation, grew into a different person, and wanted to move his artistry in a completely new direction that reflected this new outlook and this new sense of understanding. But because of that, his fans won't actually understand that because they hold him to the very same person that made all of those songs all those years ago. This also speaks to another problem that many fans have in music in general, is when an artist has made certain types of music that becomes critically acclaimed and gains them a substantial following, and they gradually change, whether it's a significant change, whether they were dealing with addiction at that time in their lives or something else completely, and they move on from that through therapy and learning to cope in healthy ways and become a better person and choose to move their music in a different direction that reflects that attitude. Fans clamor for the old them, the old music, the stuff that felt quote-unquote raw, vulnerable, something that felt like it was pushing the boundaries, something that was real, something that felt authentic. And that's the biggest problem. Tyler is stuck in an unenviable position where he has to acknowledge that he had a hand in creating this fan base, as he was a big mainstay in early 2010s edgy culture, where people became desensitized to straight up calling people slurs. But he also has to acknowledge the fact that this is kind of stuck to him now, and unfortunately, this is something that he has to deal with, even in the moments where he should be celebrating and honoring some of his heroes. There are two things that can be true. Yes, his music was over the top, and yes, it came from a time period in which he was dealing with some various amounts of emotional and mental turmoil. Can it be labeled as problematic? Absolutely it can. But it also throws into question the other kinds of music that exists within hip-hop that can otherwise be labeled as crass, over the top, racist, sexist, misogynistic, and absolutely abhorrent. Think of all the umpteenth amount of horrorcore artists. As a matter of fact, think of guys like 3 6 Mafia, outside of their more club-friendly hits, as you would put it. You have to also consider that. Ultimately, my stance on all of this is you can make whatever music you want to make, but you have to be aware that it can appeal to the wrong types of people. And whenever you may change your identity, you have to be aware that some people just won't rock with it. And unfortunately, they may spread toxic and horrendous ideologies that you may or may not have had within your music and made it okay to think like this, act like this, and talk like this. So, in other words, music does matter. Your impact does matter. What you say does matter to a certain extent. It's not the thing that's going to force people to say things that you want them to say, but it's going to be the thing that influences other people to believe in these things if they see somebody out there reflecting these kind of ideologies. Please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and as always, stay snazzy, folks.